Now, first things first, let's get into the premiere, which happened in Lagos, Nigeria, for the much anticipated film, which is now #1 on Netflix. Tokunbo was directed by Ramsey Noah, produced by Chris O'Day, with co-production by Joy Odiete, I believe that's the name. It's currently streaming on Netflix, is #1, centers on the harrowing journey of a young man, Tokunbo, portrayed by Gideon Okeke, who's about to join me on the show, delves into the lengths one could go to secure the safety and well-being of their loved ones. How far are you willing to go to protect the people that you love? How far are you willing to go? That's the big question I think this film really poses. How do you choose between love for your loved ones and that loyalty and then integrity? What do you do when you're in the face of both? Now, Ramsey Noah expressed his excitement about the film's release on Netflix, saying it was important to tell stories that resonate with both local and international audiences. Take a look at that.
You have 2 hours, 55 minutes on your clock. Good luck.
Good luck.
Come on with this one.
I find your rigidity highly commendable. But my goal is one you do not want to trample upon. My demands are quite simple, but I won't divulge them just yet.
Filmmaking is like a reflection of what happens in a society. Sometimes a lot of us allow our imaginations to go wild and do some crazy stuff. But deep down, you know that these are stories that will resonate, not today, but in time to come. So it's important for you to tell your story.
And my character, Tokunbo, is just an everyday guy who wakes up at 8 a.m. or starts his day at 8 a.m. and ends it somewhere after midnight. But it's a crazy day. It's a very peculiar day. It's a crazy day. A day worthy of a story. Every day is worthy of a story, but this one here is a blockbuster. You know. So the only clues I'll give you is 3 hours. Lekki to Semeboda. Deliver the package. 10 million naira. Or else. What would you do? Those are the only clues I'll give.
My character is a wealthy young girl who has her own life to live before somebody came and crashed it.
I play the character Iyamulika. Iyamulix, as Chidimokeme will call me. Just like what Iyamulika would sound like is what my character is. She's local. She's that seller in the hood. She's the person you can rely on. And her character is quite intense in this movie without saying much or giving anything away. But she plays a very vital role in this film, Tokunbo. And when you watch it, you would understand what I mean.
When we were doing the movie, we took into consideration the audience. As filmmakers, we really respect the audience and whoever's going to watch the film. So we took a sweet time to do this film for everybody to watch.
Now joining me on the show, the star of the movie Tokunbo, Gideon Okeke, live in our Lagos studio. Gideon, it's absolutely delightful to have you join me on Arise 360. And congratulations. Did you lose your voice? You did a lot of screaming. They frustrated you in that film, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that.
Nothing to be sorry about. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's all right. Talk to me about the film Tokunbo. I feel like it was a very emotional one. I was just mentioning earlier, without giving away spoilers because it's still relatively new and I'm sure there's a ton of people who still want to get out to watch it. But that choice between love and integrity, that's the love that we feel for family, the responsibility as well that we feel specifically towards our family, and then integrity. When you're out there in the world, you have a job to do, you have responsibilities to keep up. In your own life, how do you feel like, it plays out? How are you able to balance both? Because that's one thing that Tokunbo really struggled with.
Right. Also throw in the need to fulfill responsibility.
Exactly.
What do you do? It's what you do when no one's watching that amounts for integrity, right? We all have those moments where we have to play judge of our actions, as it relates to what we love, what we believe in, what we're loyal to. Like it says in the little link, Tokunbo is just an average guy who wakes up at 8 a.m., starts his day off, and the day ends at 12 midnight, and it's a crazy day, one worthy of a story. Without giving anything away, people have to see the film. For anyone who's seen it, I just hope that we can relate to the fact that, you also reckon that, average people these days even use their cars for car services. I'm sure people can find a part of their day in our film.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a story that was essential because it speaks to several things, and one of which is change, allowing people change, and the act of forgiving oneself. Again, I'm speaking, without paying particular emphasis to what part of the film I'm talking about. But I thought it was really interesting that, that was a direction the film really took. What does forgiving oneself mean to you, Gideon?
What does forgiving oneself mean? Oh man, I'm in the process of that. This film was kind of like the process of making this film for me was like a purge, an exorcism of a thing. So all of these things kind of gave me juice to play the character. Forgiving oneself has to go with time and patience. Most of the time we're hard on ourselves. Sometimes we drop the ball. But it's okay to pat ourselves on the back and lean on our strengths and not be so hard and just forgive. Because the forgiveness and the self-love has to come from within first before you can get it or give it to anyone.
More. Sometimes I feel like with regards to what you said about being hard on ourselves, we forget that as human beings, we're a compilation of emotions. And sometimes you'd get angry, sometimes you get sad, sometimes you'd have anxiety, sometimes you'll be very confident, sometimes you will have no confidence at all. And it's absolutely normal. Do you think we live in a society that often tries to define how we should be with our emotions? Like, as Gideon Okeke, for instance, you're meant to be this person. You're not meant to be this person. Have you ever felt like society has tried to put you in that position?
Yeah, I've had folks who'd say to me, "Hey, why can't you be like this guy?" But let me allude to something. It took Moses to be the guy who went to Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's in whatever is in his character is also a part of his destiny.
Yeah.
So it took Moses to be the guy to go to the Pharaoh. It takes me to be Gideon. It takes you to be whom you are, and nobody else. That's that thing to say everyone else is taking, but you choose.
100%. Like, I feel it's so important for people to start to realize this. Like, everything you are and everything you've been through is just in line for you to achieve a certain purpose, and you need to just remain focused on that. Now, walking through this film, what was the preparatory process like for you? What mental space did you have to get into to properly articulate your role?
Playing Tokunbo wasn't so easy to play because the character role is a very physically and mentally demanding role. I've played several roles in the lead position, but this time out really presented to me the fact that you're not hired just for your acting chops. Particularly for a film like this, a film as technical and as physically demanding as this one. You're not just hired for your acting chops. You're hired for your physicality to go the mile. If we're going 60 days, are you going to tap out? And for me, part of my process was looking through the corner of my eye to see if the director is looking at me too, hoping that I'm not tapping out. So I'm not tapping out. Ramsey's not tapping out. We're all going. Sometimes we're frustrated through the process, but we still keep it going. And before you knew it was 45 days. And this is the hardest film I've made. One of the hardest, grittiest characters that I've had to play. Most of the stunts and the things in the film were performed by me, even though we had a stunts team to guide me through the safety of it. But most of the stuff on there was actually performed on the stage, on the floor. So this is the grittiest, this is the hardest I've worked, and this is starting to look like the most I've reaped.
You know, I was going to say that it was, I mean, I would call this film a big, is it correct to say this is a big budget film, right?
Well, somewhere, it's a big budget film. I've been in $1 million film, but this is about $180,000 to $200,000. But I've been in $1 million film twice, and I'll be very honest, no shade, it's still my work, but I have never gotten this kind of reception for a film I have made, and I'm 17 years old in the business.
And I want us to touch on that because I feel like that speaks volumes, you know, to the fact that sometimes it's not about the film, but it's really about the production. And I feel like I'm just going to give a big shout out to the executive producers, the producers, the directors as well on this project. You know, the importance of really looking after your actors. Could you speak on that briefly? Within Nollywood, how emphatic is it to just stop playing optics and face the realities of what actors deal with on a day-to-day and just pay better, do better?
Well, I've also come to realize that, I mean, not like come to realize, the fact is the fact. You get what you negotiate. Yeah. But before you can affirm things in the positive or in favor of yourself, you have to have kind of, I think, in my opinion, put in your 10,000 hours. I would say I had a little hiatus from the business for a bit, not like a hiatus, but you know, everyone has it's a season, it's a cycle, things go around. I was lucky and also prepared at the time that Mr. Ramsey Noah and Mr. Chris approached me for a film titled Lazarus, which was the original title for this film that became Tokunbo.
Yeah.
And so the entire process for me, this is the most inclusive I have been in a film process, right from the very moment I was approached for it. We started developing or redeveloping the story, finding the money for it, and doing everything to put it to work. On the other end, I was out of work for a bit, trying to stage a comeback. So I think everything just aligns perfectly. Ramsey Noah, a director who's trying to best his last effort. Mr. Chris O'Day, a producer who's trying to, blow the fish out of the water with his last effort. Gideon Okeke, an actor who's not seen work in a while, just holding the baton over there, waiting for a pitcher to throw me a nice one so I could hit something out the park. I think everything just aligned, and here we are.
You know what I think? I think that sounds like a very normal, realistic life. You know, that sounds as normal
as life,
again. That's life because
right there.
Everything you've just said, they're people that each and every one of the people you mentioned represent. They represent some people out there. You know, there are people who are in the Mr. Ramsey's phase. Yeah. There are people who are in your phase as well. And I feel like that's why it was so important to have you come on the show and talk about this. Now, with regards to
it's a cycle. It's a cycle. Wherever you are, go.
No, please go ahead. Go ahead. Wherever you are.
Yeah, I was going to say, wherever you are is just where your 2 feet are.
I agree with you. Like,
you know what I mean?
But sometimes your mind isn't telling you that.
There's always a place you're going in your mind.
Sometimes your mind isn't telling you that. Sometimes your mind is like, yeah, my 2 feet is here, but my entire body feels like this is where I'm going to be dead and buried.
Yeah. Those moments come. And I mean, I'm a testimony to that today.
You are.
You're going to ask me something.
Yeah, I was going to talk about funding, right? And I was going to say that right now, excitedly, I'm going to say, we're in a space in Nollywood where there's more and more interest in the funding of our industry. And we have people that are interested in pushing some bucks in here, but then direction is also key, because as much as funding is a problem, when we do get that money, where do we put the money? So if in some instance, someone reaches out to Gideon and says, "Yo, Gideon, I've got like, $200,000 or I've got $400,000 and I really want to do something really big in the Nigerian movie industry. And I'm just thinking of where to channel my funds. Do I put it in one project? Do I spread it across? What's your best advice with regards to direction for funding in Nollywood right now?"
The several different departments in film are still open avenues for investment because everything is a business, going from wardrobe all the way to whatever, call it catering and craft services. It's open. Anybody can come in and play big. But particularly for me of interest is the fact that there's a lot of traffic in Lagos and there's very few roads. This is what interests me. There's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of cars in Lagos and very few roads. Now, what if we had more roads? Would we ease the traffic in Lagos? Because most homes have 5, 6 cars, right? On the average 3 cars, right? Now, what I'm alluding to is we are doling out content, which is great, right? Which is great. We make like maybe 500 films now in a month or something like is great. And we're making really competitive films that can hold their own anywhere in the world. Tokunbo being one of them. It's great. But this is what interests me. As much as we dole out content, I'm really interested in infrastructure. The infrastructure that builds that trust for that kind of heavy investment to come to Nigeria. A lot of people are going to Ghana. A lot of investment is going to South Africa. It's because Nigeria or our big boys over here haven't really put the money down for us to show capacity. And the reason investors are going Ghana, South Africa, Kenya is because of that show of capacity. Excuse me, we don't have sound stages here. If you ask me, I'm not going to make another movie. It just feels like you just want to get rich quick. Yes, I'll make a film if I'm hired to. I have investments in productions here and there, but that's not really my core. What I'm about is, are we building more roads to ease the traffic? There is a bottleneck because we don't have enough eyes. We don't have enough cinemas, enough seats for people to go see movies, because even that has even stifled the cinema-going culture. But thankful to the streaming services, right? But how do we empower the filmmaker to continue to dole out this kind of high-value content? Check this out. We still film in people's homes. I can still call you up and say, Nne, please, I need to film in your home. You help me? It's inconvenient to you, to the filmmaker. We don't have a film village just yet, all those things. I would invest in infrastructure much more than trying to go to the Oscars.
Okay, now how would you juxtapose that with the fact that let's take Lagos for instance. Lagos and the creative economy within Lagos is entirely different. We know that there are plans to work towards a film village, but that's on the government side. Now these are private investors. Investments in infrastructure for people who are getting into industrialization is different from investment in the creative industry. Because for the creative industry, for a lot of the investors, you're looking at quick returns. Like, how can I put this in and get it out? So how do you juxtapose that with an investor who's saying, exactly, I'm giving you this money and I need to see a track record on how it's going to come back and a duration, with the fact that there are also films in this same country without those infrastructure that are doing $1 billion with the lack of cinema, with the lack of good roads. They're still making that quick buck. So what is going to convince an investor to say, I'm going to fix the infrastructure, if the people in the industry would rather do their $1 billion film and get their quick bucks and ignore that infrastructure?
You see, the reason the investor wants his money real quick is that lack of trust in the first place. If the system is built to show working, you wouldn't be in a hurry to try to recoup your stuff knowing that the system checks itself for itself. Now, the Nollywood ecosystem is peculiar to itself in the sense that It doesn't conform to any textbook formulas. You can't study Nollywood in school. And you have to. It's an experiential thing, and in that I'm going to say, if we have to name names, the Funke Akindeles are one in a million, right? But they've built systems for themselves. They built the capacity for themselves, and this is, like I said, one in a million. But what we're speaking of here is how to empower en masse and the average, and we can have more Funke Akindeles, more Ruth Kadiris. YouTube is opening up avenues for people to create more content and have ownership of their content. It's fine, it's really great. But if we put infrastructure down, I believe that we would be empowering en masse. It would be a larger development than making content. It's just what I feel.
I love what you're saying, Gideon, and we have such a short time.
I hope I got your question right.
You did, and it takes me to the next question I have. You have just a minute to respond, but why do you think most people invest infrastructure in remote locations outside than in the city in itself?
Yeah.
Because we do have some of these film villages. There are a few of them around where you see full-blown productions happening, but you hardly find that in the commercial areas. They're in remote villages.
In the metropolis, yes.
Exactly. So what do you think the reason behind that is? Because that may also be part of the problem, or may not.
No, it's a beautiful development, because the skyline of Nigerian film doesn't have to be Lagos, Lekki Bridge. Watch our films. It's all Lagos. You know what I mean? The skyline of Nigerian film doesn't have to be Lagos all the time, or Abuja. So it's cool that we see guys who are brave enough to go to their villages and buy hectarage and put stuff on it, and create film villages of their own. Changing the skyline or pushing thought. It's cool to see all those things. And also, Lagos is hard to filming. I think it's the hardest city to film in. Going by Omonile and the things you go by, it's the hardest city to film in. But most of Nollywood films are made in Lagos.
Yeah.
So we actually make the films in the hardest city to film in. It's easier to film outside Lagos, but it'll be more expensive because now you have to take care of flying your professionals with you. So it's cool that we take those kind of investments out into the hintercities, into hinterlands, where it's cheaper to control and manage your overhead and all those stuff. Meanwhile, there's no power. It's probably why people are going to Ghana.
That's what's up, though, Gideon. I love how you just sprinkle that at the end, but we're a work in progress, and we're going to keep these conversations going. I'm so grateful you.
Yeah. We're a work in progress, and we must forgive ourselves. We must be easy on ourselves, like you started by saying.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this. And of course, anyone who hasn't seen Tokunbo, I'm guessing is just rushing off to Netflix right after the show to just, take a look at what it has to offer. Thank you so much, Gideon, for being a part of the show with me today. This was a great conversation.